Welcome back to Synapse AI Talks, your global headquarters for decoding the future of AI, technology, and geopolitics.
Today, we are looking at something small, really small, but the shadow it casts is big enough to cover the entire planet.
We're talking about the invisible war. It's not fought with missiles or tanks, at least not yet. It is fought in clean rooms brighter than an operating theater, using light invisible to the human eye.
We are talking about the chip war, the $500 billion struggle between the United States and China.
Correct. And make no mistake, Julian, the outcome of this conflict determines who rules the 21st century. If you control the chips, you control the military, the economy, and the artificial intelligence that will define our future.
It sounds dramatic, Scarlett. Who rules the world? But aren't we just talking about the stuff inside my phone?
That assumption is exactly why the West almost lost the lead. It is not just your phone. It is the guidance system of a hypersonic missile. It is the server farm training the next GPT-5. It is the power grid. It is the banking system. Oil was the resource of the 20th century. Silicon is the resource of the 21st. And right now, the supply line is terrifyingly fragile.
So this is the modern oil crisis, but for tech.
It is far more volatile than oil. You can find oil in Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Texas, Norway. But the most advanced silicon, the chips that power cutting-edge AI, they come effectively from one place, one island.
Taiwan.
Yes, TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. They produce over 90% of the world's most advanced chips. If that island goes dark, the global economy doesn't just slow down, Julian. It stops.
That is a terrifying thought. Before we dive into the nightmare scenarios, if you want to understand the forces shaping your reality, make sure you subscribe to Synapse AI Talks right now. We're tracking the future so you don't get left behind.
Let's break down the technology first, because to understand the war, you have to understand the weapon. We're talking about nanometers.
I hear this term a lot. 7 nanometers, 5 nanometers, 3 nanometers. What does it actually mean?
It refers to the size of the transistors on a chip. A nanometer is a billionth of a meter. To give you scale, a human hair is about 80,000 to 100,000 nanometers wide.
Okay, so we're working at a scale that is basically magic.
It is engineering that borders on magic. In a modern 3-nanometer chip, like the ones in the latest iPhones or Nvidia's AI processors, we're packing billions of transistors onto a slice of silicon the size of a fingernail. The smaller the transistor, the faster the calculation and the less energy it consumes.
And China wants to make these small chips, and the US wants to stop them.
Precisely, but here's the catch. Making these chips requires the most complex machine ever built by human hands. It's called an EUV lithography machine, extreme ultraviolet.
And let me guess, you can't just buy these at the hardware store.
There is only one company in the entire world that makes them, ASML, in the Netherlands. Each machine costs over $200 million. It is the size of a bus. It uses a laser to blast droplets of tin falling through a vacuum 50,000 times a second to generate light that doesn't exist naturally on Earth.
Wait, hold on. One company? In the Netherlands?
One company. And this is the first choke point. The U.S. government, specifically under the Biden administration, but starting with Trump, realized that if you cut off China's access to ASML's machines, you effectively freeze their technology in time.
So the US pressured the Dutch?
Unmaturely, no, but strategically, yes, they formed a blockade. ASML is banned from selling their most advanced EUV machines to China. Without those machines, China cannot manufacture the sub-5 nanometer chips needed for advanced AI and military dominance.
So that sounds like a checkmate.
It is a stranglehold, but China isn't sitting still. They are pouring billions, trillions of yuan into their own domestic industry. They have a plan called Made in China 2025. Their goal is 70% self-sufficiency in chips.
How close are they?
That's the billion-dollar question, and it brings us to a major controversy that happened recently with Huawei.
Oh, I remember this. The Mate 60 Pro release?
Exactly. The US had placed sanctions on Huawei, essentially a death sentence for a tech company. They couldn't get chips from TSMC, they couldn't get Android updates, they were supposed to die.
But they didn't.
No. Last year, they released a phone with a 7-nanometer chip made entirely in China by a company called SMIC. It shocked Washington. It suggested that the blockade was leaking.
So the US sanctions failed?
Not failed, but perhaps underestimated the opponent. SMIC likely used older machines, DUV, deep ultraviolet, and pushed them to their absolute physical limits to achieve that 7-nanometer chip. It's expensive, the yield rates are low, and it's inefficient. But they did it. It proved that China can innovate under pressure.
This is getting intense. It's like a technological arms race where the finish line keeps moving. If you're enjoying this deep dive, take a second to hit that like button. It helps the algorithm know you want more geopolitical analysis like this.
Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather, the dragon in the sea.
Taiwan.
TSMC. You said they make 90% of the advanced chips. Why is everyone relying on one island? That seems like terrible planning. It is the result of decades of hyper-efficiency. Morris Chang founded TSMC with a unique model. They don't design chips, they only manufacture them. They are the foundry for everyone: Apple, Nvidia, AMD, Qualcomm. They focused purely on manufacturing excellence, and they left everyone else in the dust. Intel used to be the leader, but they stumbled. TSMC didn't.
So if China invades Taiwan,
The world stops. Estimates suggest a Chinese blockade or invasion of Taiwan would cost the global economy $2 trillion instantly. But more than money, it would cripple the U.S. military.
The U.S. military relies on Taiwanese chips?
Heavily. And this is why the U.S. is currently scrambling to build fabs, chip factories in Arizona. The CHIPS Act, signed by President Biden, allocates $52 billion to bring chip manufacturing back to American soil.
I've seen the news about that. TSMC is building in Arizona. Intel is building in Ohio. Is it working?
Slowly, very slowly. You cannot just build a factory and switch it on. It takes years. It requires a specialized workforce that the U.S. currently lacks. We don't have enough engineers trained in advanced lithography. Meanwhile, China produces more STEM graduates per year than the U.S. does in a decade.
That is a sobering statistic. So we are racing to build lifeboats in Arizona while the Titanic is sailing through the Taiwan Strait.
That is a fair analogy, but the war has escalated recently. It has moved beyond just making chips. It is now about the chips specifically designed for artificial intelligence.
You mean Nvidia?
Nvidia is the kingmaker right now. Their H100 and A100 chips are the engines of the AI revolution. You cannot train a massive model like ChatGPT without thousands of these GPUs.
And I'm guessing the U.S. doesn't want China to have them.
Correct. In October 2022 and again in October 2023, the U.S. Commerce Department issued sweeping export controls. They banned the sale of high-performance AI chips to China. They even banned the sale of slightly less good chips that Nvidia made specifically to comply with the first ban.
They closed the loophole.
They slammed it shut. The U.S. logic is simple. AI is the next nuclear weapon. It will power cyber warfare, autonomous drones, and algorithmic propaganda. If China gets to AGI, artificial general intelligence, first, the geopolitical balance shifts permanently.
So how is China getting these chips? I assume they are.
Smuggling, black markets, shell companies in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. There are reports of Chinese entities buying Nvidia chips through intermediaries in Dubai or Singapore. It's a game of whack-a-mole. You can ban the direct sale, but these chips are small and high value, like diamonds or drugs. They will find a way.
And what about China's retaliation? They aren't just taking this lying down, right?
Absolutely not. China controls the processing of critical minerals, gallium and germanium.
I remember high school chemistry, but remind me why those matter?
They are essential for semiconductors, radar systems, and solar panels. China produces about 80% of the world's gallium and 60% of the germanium. Last year, they restricted exports. It was a warning shot. They're saying, you cut off our chips, we cut off the ingredients you need to make them.
That is terrifying. It's a resource war.
It is mutual assured destruction, but economic. The US and China are like two conjoined twins trying to kill each other. Their economies are deeply intertwined. Apple makes iPhones in China. Tesla makes cars in Shanghai. But politically, they're decoupling.
I want to go back to the Made in China 2025 plan. Can they actually catch up without ASML?
It is incredibly difficult. Without extreme ultraviolet lithography, physics is against them. However, they are exploring alternatives, particle accelerators, advanced packaging techniques where they stack older chips together to mimic the performance of a newer one. Never underestimate the engineering capability of a nation that views this as an existential threat.
It feels like the U.S. is trying to maintain a lead, not just by running faster, but by tripping the other runner.
That is the perfect description. The U.S. strategy is run faster, trip harder. The CHIPS Act is the running faster. The export controls are the tripping. But the other runner is getting back up, and they're angry.
If you're finding this breakdown of the global power struggle valuable, please share this video with a friend. People need to understand what is actually at stake here.
Let's look at the corporate espionage angle, because this war isn't just fought by governments.
Spies?
Intellectual property theft has been a massive issue for decades. ASML accused a former employee in China of stealing proprietary data about their lithography machines. There have been cases of engineers being arrested at airports with hard drives full of schematics.
It sounds like a movie.
It is reality. The talent war is fierce. China is offering massive salaries, 3-4 times the market rate, to hire engineers from Taiwan and South Korea. They're trying to buy the knowledge they cannot yet invent.
And what is Taiwan doing about that?
Taiwan has passed laws to protect their technological secrets. They treat technology as a matter of national security. Defecting to a Chinese company with trade secrets can now land you in prison for a very long time.
So everyone is locking down. The globalization of tech is over.
Globalization is dead in the semiconductor sector. We're entering an era of techno-nationalism. Every major power wants their own sovereign supply chain. Europe wants one. India wants one. Japan is trying to revive theirs.
And where does this leave the consumer? Us.
Higher prices, innovation might actually slow down because companies are duplicate spending. Instead of one efficient global supply chain, we're building 3 or 4 inefficient separate ones. The cost of your phone, your car, your computer, it will all go up.
And the risk of real war? Kinetic war?
That is the nightmare scenario. Some analysts believe that as the U.S. tightens the screws, China might feel they have nothing left to lose. If they can't buy the chips and they can't make the chips, taking the chips becomes the only option left.
Invading Taiwan to seize the TSMC factories.
Yes, but there's a catch. The broken nest policy.
What is that?
It is an unspoken and sometimes spoken threat that if China invades, the U.S. or Taiwan itself would destroy the TSMC factories. Scorched earth.
They would blow up their own factories?
To keep them out of Chinese hands, absolutely. And even if they didn't, the machines are so delicate that simply turning off the power or the remote maintenance from ASML would turn them into paperweights within weeks. China would capture an empty shell.
So an invasion doesn't actually get them the chips.
No, but it denies them to the West. It burns the house down so no one can live in it.
That is, bleak.
It is the reality of deterrence.
Let's pivot to AI again, because that seems to be the accelerant here. How far ahead is the U.S. really?
Currently, the U.S. has a significant lead in hardware and the most advanced models. OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, they are American. They run on American-designed Nvidia chips. China has strong AI companies, Baidu, Tencent, Alibaba, but they are training on older hardware or restricted hardware. That creates a compute gap.
A compute gap.
Yes, if it takes the US 1 week to train a model, and it takes China 3 months to train the same model because their chips are slower, the US innovation cycle accelerates exponentially faster. Over 5 years, that gap becomes unbridgeable.
And that's why China's so desperate to close the loop.
Exactly. But there is another layer, open source.
Right, models like Llama from Meta.
Yes. While the US government restricts hardware, US companies are releasing open source software. China can use Llama to power their applications. It is a paradox. We lock the front door, chips, but leave the back window open, software.
Is the U.S. government going to stop that too?
They are debating it. But regulating open source code is nearly impossible. Once it's on the internet, it's everywhere.
I want to ask about the rest of the world. We talk U.S. versus China. What about Europe, Japan, South Korea?
They're caught in the crossfire. Samsung and SK Hynix in South Korea are huge players. They have massive factories inside China. The U.S. forced them to stop upgrading those factories. They're bleeding money. They have to choose loyalty to the U.S. security umbrella or access to the Chinese market.
It's a you're with us or against us moment.
It is. And the Dutch, as we mentioned with ASML, they are unhappy about losing the Chinese market, which was a huge chunk of their revenue. But they value NATO security more.
What do you think is the black swan event here, the thing no one is talking about?
Power. Electricity.
Electricity.
AI data centers consume massive amounts of power. Chip manufacturing consumes massive amounts of power and water. Taiwan has faced droughts recently that threaten TSMC's production. As chips get more complex, the environmental costs skyrocket. We might hit a wall where physics and resources limit us before politics does.
That is a fascinating angle. We are worried about missiles, but we should be worried about water.
Always watch the resources.
Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you guys watching. What worries you more? A Chinese monopoly on AI or a fragmented world where tech becomes more expensive and slower? Drop a comment below. I read all of them.
There is one final aspect, Julian. The legacy chip trap.
Legacy chips?
The older chips, 28 nanometers and above, the ones in your washing machine, your car's braking system, your microwave.
The boring chips.
The essential chips. While the U.S. focuses on the high-end AI chips, China is quietly cornering the market for legacy chips. They're building dozens of factories for older technology. They could flood the market, drive Western competitors out of business with low prices, and control the supply chain for everyday electronics.
So we might have super advanced AI, but we won't be able to buy a toaster because China controls the chips for it.
Or they could turn off the supply of chips for Ford and GM, causing another auto crisis. It's asymmetric warfare.
It seems like every way you look, there's a vulnerability.
That is the nature of a globalized supply chain being torn apart. It's messy, it's painful, and it is far from over.
So what is the endgame?
The U.S. hopes to maintain a permanent two-generation lead. They don't need to stop China completely. They just need to stay faster. China hopes to achieve escape velocity, to invent a new technology, maybe photonics or quantum computing, that bypasses the need for EUV lithography entirely.
Bypassing the blockade by changing the game.
Exactly. If silicon hits a physical limit, the next material, maybe graphene, perhaps, could reset the board. And the race for that is just beginning.
Scarlett, this has been mind-blowing. I'll never look at my phone the same way again.
You shouldn't. It is a miracle of engineering and a hostage of geopolitics.
Thank you for guiding us through the minefield.
Always a pleasure, Julian.
And thank you for watching Synapse AI Talks. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, you know what to do.
Subscribe. The world is changing faster than you think. We will see you in the next episode.